All right, thanking God once again, but this time for, among other things, setting the example, understanding that from time to time we use the illustration of having good bosses, ones that we can appreciate for, among other things, sometimes having those who have basically become experts at everything they are asking of you. And so in this chapter, where we're going to look at the last the last 6 chapters of the book of Daniel, 4 of which are going to have to do with some form of suffering. 3 of them are going to show the suffering of God's people, one of which seems to show the suffering of his anointed, or what would seem to be his Christ. But understanding that we take 7 chapters at a time, our 7th chapter this week is going to be the first chapter of the book of Hosea. But all that aside, let's look at least a few of these chapters from the theme or concept of sharing, understanding that they might seem to give us an idea of what it's like to actually share in his suffering, reminding me that when I'm going through my own hard times, sometimes I get frustrated with God, forgetting that sometimes he is simply giving me an opportunity to share in the sufferings he's already experienced. With that, let's call chapter 7 Sharing, and we'll figure out a title from there. Understanding that these are complicated chapters, once again, in territory that is unfamiliar for me. This time, not because I haven't seen them before, but because they are super complicated, at least for me. But understanding that, I'm gonna try to do my best to give you narrative summaries and go back and try to edit in better clips because I am short for time right now. But with that, Daniel chapter 7 is going to be the story of a dream or / vision of 4 beasts that are going to be similar, understanding what we saw in Nebuchadnezzar's dream in chapter 2 of a statue with 4 sections. These 4 beasts are going to seem to correspond quite possibly to those 4 sections or 4 kingdoms. Understanding that Daniel is going to have a dream / vision of 4 beasts coming up from the sea, a metaphor we'll see again in the Revelation. One, a lion with wings who are plucked off. But as the lion falls to the earth, he is going to be caused to stand up like a man, seeming to correspond to Nebuchadnezzar, or at least the kingdom of Babylon, as we saw back in chapter 2. The second beast, a bear, mighty and devouring, with 3 ribs in his mouth, commanded to devour much. The fourth beast, that beast corresponding seemingly to Medo-Persia. The third beast, in the image or the likeness of a leopard with 4 heads and 4 wings. The fourth, not like the other 3, with 7 heads? No. 10 horns. Yeah, either way. 10 horns. Terrifying and very different, as we said, in its power and majesty from the other beasts. Either way, after we are introduced to Daniel's vision of those 4 beasts, we see the Ancient of Days seated, as it were, in court to render judgment on the 4 beasts, with his presence in court preceding one like a son of man, who, in spite of all of these kingdoms who are about to experience God's judgment, is going to receive an everlasting kingdom. We'll break that off into the first 2 sections, I guess, of the discussion, meaning the introduction of the beast. I'll call that the first section, and then the second section being the court assembled to judge the beast. Let's call the third section the anxiety that it caused Daniel, meaning that he did not completely understand what was going on. So he asked one of those who was around in his dream / vision for an explanation. They explained it to him, helping him to understand that those 4 beasts were 4 great kings. Sometimes kings, especially in the Revelation, is going to be synonymous with kingdoms, which it also might be in your translation. However, the saints are going to inherit a kingdom unlike theirs. It is a kingdom that will last forever, much like the kingdom that was given or basically rewarded to the Son of Man that we saw back in what we'll call section B. But Daniel is still going to be perplexed and bothered by that 4th beast. And even though receiving a kingdom forever might seem like a happily ever after, Daniel has good cause to be worried about that 4th beast. Why? Because the road to receiving that kingdom is going to go through that persecution that we mentioned before. Understanding that that beast with 10 horns is going to be described as having 10 horns plus one horn that is going to seem to uproot 3 others. And that one horn is going to make war with the saints. It's also going to try to change the times and the laws. Going on to the last section, we'll call it section D. It's going to say, in spite of this little horns, power and, or this additional horns, power and ability to actually prevail over the saints in the war it wages against them, the court is once again going to be an issue, as it is going to judge that beast and that additional horn. It is going to mark that horn's decline and the rise of the saints, reminding us once again that even though the saints will have to endure much under the last beast and the final horn, they will once again inherit a kingdom that will endure forever, reminding me of a sub-theme that I might mention from time to time as we close out the book of Daniel. And that is, we might rise without integrity, but we will not last without it. Understanding that as difficult as the persecution will get for the saints, the success of the little horn, I don't think it's really the little horn. That's going to be a description of one of the rulers that we will see in the following chapters. But the mighty horn, we'll call it in this chapter, from the terrifying beast, will endure for a season, prospering in his efforts to basically subvert the law. As we will see in the following chapters, other characteristics from other rulers in other kingdoms that God is likewise promising will not last long. Different facets of ruling without integrity that are essentially on the clock. Reminded me of one more thing. The reason why we might highlight purple this week is because purple biblically is a color that's associated with ruling or royalty. This time, we might highlight purple as a way of emphasizing the way that God is describing for us the kinds of kingdoms that will rise in ways that will eventually lose his blessing.